Hey guys, it's Kaylor. Welcome to the YouTube channel. In today's video, this is going to be part 2 for our movie streaming platform website that we created in the last video. We designed it in Adobe Xd, and now we're going to take that and make it a website. So I'm going to show you guys how to export all the images for yourself, but also the project file link is down in the description. If you don't want to export them yourself, I will have them in the folder already for you. Make sure you guys have that notification bell on because there will be a part 2.5 to this where we add the responsive code to what we create today. So I hope you guys are ready. Let's go ahead and get started. So to export your images for the website, it's really simple. I like to look at it with two ways. You have a background image and then you have just a normal image that you're going to be working with. So first I get the images out of the way and then I do the background image. So I'm going to duplicate our artboard so we can work freely and delete things as we export. To export one thing at a time, you just select the item. So we have the iPad selected and hit Command E. Choose your folder. We're going to name this iPad Pro. And it's going to be a PNG. Export for design. Export. Once we have that, we can just delete it. You can also export all of your images at once. So here we have a repeated grid of movie posters. We'll ungroup that, remove the shadow from all of them, and hit Command E, select our folder, and then export. So now in our folder, you can see that it's exported all of our images. So we're done with those. Last thing we need to do is get this background image here for the website. So how to do a background image, I like to just drag out the section that I'm going to be working with. So I'm going to drag out a rectangle that's going to cover to there. I'm going to drag that out to the side. And all we're going to do is fill in this with the background image that we need. So let's delete all this information. That way it's a little bit easier to work with. So we need to incorporate these white circles. So I'm just going to grab each one of them holding Shift, Command G, and now we have those grouped together. Then we have these little circles here in the background, and then we have our Deadpool image. So I'm just going to drag and select all of those. Command G to group them. And then we can hold Alt and create a duplicate of that rectangle that we just made and just drag it back into position. Drag to select that grouping and the rectangle. Command Shift M will mask that, or you can go to Object, Mask with Shape. And we're left with this image. It has our slightly lowered opacity circles, our Deadpool image, and the bottom of our circles, which is exactly what we want. Now, if we drag this over, you'll see that we don't have our gradient. So all we have to do is apply that to this background square and just match the gradient that we have on this artboard. That's close enough. So I'll just drag that in. I'm going to make sure they're both aligned together. Command G, and now we have this grouping. Command E, and you can name this whatever you want. I think I named mine like Deadpool header, but for now we'll just name it header. So now in our folder, we have that header PNG image. That's going to be set for our background image. So that's how to export all of your assets out of Adobe Xd and prepare them for code. So I hope that was helpful. Let's head over to brackets and let's start coding. So here in brackets, I have my code folder opened, and then we have our images folder. I've renamed all those posters to 1 through 8. Then our header image is now named Deadpool header.png. I have an iPad image, which is just Deadpool here in our iPad. And then I've also created a phone that will be supplied in the project files. And this is just so when we go to a little bit of a smaller screen, we don't have that huge iPad there. So we're just going to switch to an iPhone later on. So let's go ahead and create our index.html. So Command N, Command S, name this index.html. And then we'll create our main.css. So we're going to write the index.html first and then apply the styling. So let's lay down the framework for HTML. So we'll start with doc type, HTML, and then open and close our HTML tag. We're going to need a head tag. First thing inside of here, I'm going to do just a title, and we'll just call this movies, period. I'm going to do this line and say home. Next, we need our metas. So meta character set UTF-8. And then we need one for the viewport. So meta, name, viewport, and then content width equals device dash width, comma, initial dash scale equals 1.0. And then we need to link to our style sheet. So link rel style sheet href and then main.css. That's it for the head tag. So let's open up our body tag and then we'll just make some room in here and we're ready to start. If we take a look at the design, we're going to be doing this entire section right here. We're going to start with a header tag, then we're going to have a nav, and then I'm going to throw in a mobile nav just for later, and then we'll have an H1, a button, and a few P tags, and then this image. So let's start with the header. First thing inside of here is our nav tag. I'm going to create our logo, so we'll do an A tag for that, href, pound symbol that out, and this is just going to be movies, period. And then let's add a class of logo to that. Below that, I'm going to start with a UL, and I'm going to give this UL a class of desktop. So this is going to be our desktop navigation. So inside of here, we're going to have list items, and then we'll have an A tag inside of each one of those. For the href, we'll pound symbol those out. And then we're going to have 3 of those for our 3 links. Now for the mobile navigation, so outside of our UL, I'm going to create a div and give it a class of mobile. Inside of here, we're going to create our button that's going to be clicked on. It's going to be our hamburger menu. So we'll start with a label. And this is going to be for, and it's going to target a ID. So we'll give it a name of toggle. And then inside of there, we're going to give this the Unicode of and symbol hashtag 9776 semicolon, which is the hamburger code. Below our label, we're going to need our input. So input type. This is going to be a checkbox. And then the ID on this is going to match our target, which is toggle. So those two have to match, and then we'll close that. If you guys haven't seen this before, I have a tutorial on how to do this. I'll link that on the screen now. So below this, we're going to need our UL, so our unordered list. And this is going to be, again, the same thing. So we'll just copy all these list items. And that is our mobile navigation done. So that is it for the complete navigation section. So underneath that, but still inside the header, we need an H1 tag, and I'll go to Adobe Xd and copy our text, and we'll paste that in. Below that, I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to give this a class of btn group. So creating a gradient text is not very easy, so we're going to have to create a grouping to make this work. So I'm going to do my link here. So this is going to be href. We'll pound symbol it out. Also give this one a class of btn white for our white button. And then we'll say try it free. Or you can do try it for free, whatever. And then below that, we'll have a div with a class of white bg. Next, we need a p tag. And then we'll copy this text and paste that in. And this text is not going to be very large, so I'm just going to add the breakpoints in manually. Then below that, we need another P tag. Then we'll grab that text, paste that in, and then before movies, I'll apply a break. So if we take a look at what we have, you'll see that we have our 2 P tags right here. And we're actually going to go ahead and bold our no rental fees and forget the theaters. I'll do that with a B tag. So no rental fees, we'll do a B tag here, and that's going to tell it to bold. And then forget the theaters, we'll have a B tag on that. And there we go. The last thing we need in the header section is our iPad image. So I'll do an image tag and give this a source of images, and then find my iPad image. And for the alt, I'll just say iPad. I'm also going to give this a class of iPad. And then since later we're going to throw in a phone, I'll do another one, image source, images, and I'll look for iPhone. Give this one an alt of iPhone, and then also a class of iPhone. And that is it for our header. Next, we're going to create this new 4K movie section. So outside of the header, I'm going to create a div with a class of new 4K movies. I'm going to create another div inside of that and give this one a class of section title. Inside of here, we're going to have the title and then our button to view more. So we'll have an H2, new 4K movies. And then we'll have our button. So we'll do an A tag, href, pound symbol that out, and then view more. Let's give this button a class of btn green. And then outside of that div, we can start with a unordered list. We're gonna have a list item with an A tag, and we'll href, pound symbol that out. And then inside of that, we're gonna have an image tag with a source of images, and then we'll do our first image, which is 1.png. And then an alt tag, it's just gonna say movie poster. And then we can duplicate that 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And then I'll change the images. So we're doing one unordered list for the first row, and then we'll do another unordered list for the next row. So we'll just copy these and paste them in, and then change them. And that's all we need for this section. So outside of the div, we can create another div. I'm gonna give this one a class of call to action. And that is going to be this section here. So we're just gonna have some text, a span around this to make that colored, and then a button. So we need an H1, and we'll grab our text and paste that in. And then we need a span tag that surrounds 599. So span. We'll put the closing after the 9. And then below the H1, we need an A tag, href, pound symbol that out, class, and this one's going to be btn color. Then we can say get started. And that's all we need for the call to action section. Lastly, we need a footer, so we'll start with the footer tag. Just going to remove all the spacing here. Inside of our footer, I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to give this a class of copy. This is going to be for our copyright. Inside the copyright, we have our logo, and then our copyright information, and then we'll have a list for these links. For our logo, we'll do a href, pound symbol it out. We'll also give this a class of logo, like we did up in our navigation, and then we'll say movies, period. Below that, we need a p tag with our copyright information. So I'll just copy that over and paste it in. Outside of that div, we can start our unordered list for our other pages. So list item, and we'll have an A tag, href, pound symbol that out. And we have 4 of these, so I'll duplicate that 3 times. And that's everything we need for the HTML. So I'm going to go to my CSS, and then I'm just going to create a comment. Put some dashes in here, and then we'll just call this one global. So this is for our global styling. We'll target everything, and then we'll say margin of 0, padding of 0, border 0, outline 0. Font dash size is going to be 100%. Vertically align is going to be set to baseline. And that's all we need for that. Now I'm going to do the root. And here we're going to set the colors that we're going to be using in variables. So to set a variable, we have to do 2 dashes. And main dash black. It's going to be our first one. color code we used was 1E202B. And then we have dash dash main dash blue. And the color code we use for the blue is 08AEEA. And then we'll set one for green, so dash dash main dash green. And color code is 2AF598. And then lastly, we're going to do the gradient. So we'll do dash dash main dash gradient. And we need to set a linear gradient. So linear dash gradient. And then we need parentheses. And inside of here, I'm going to say to the right. So that's going to be our angle. And then var. And in parentheses, we need to set dash dash main dash blue. So we're using our main blue. And then comma. And another var. And open close those parentheses. And then dash dash main dash green. And so that is all of our colors set into the root, so we can use those variables. Next, I'm going to set the HTML, and I'm going to do the font family. Again, I always like to mention that this is going to work for me since I'm on localhost, but you're going to have another method such as embedding it or using something like Typekit if you're going to do this on a server. So I'm going to say font dash family, and this is source sans Pro, and then I'm going to alt to sans serif if that's not available. Next, we can do the body, and here we'll just set the width to 100%, and then the background color is just going to be white. Next, let's do our fonts. We'll start with the H1. Font dash size is going to be set to 48 pixels, which is going to be our largest font. And font weight, I'm going to set that to 700, so it's bold, but not too bold. And then we'll set the color on this. And to set a color, we have to do var parentheses. And then we have to name dash dash main dash black. Next, we can go on to the H2. Font size on this is going to be 36 pixels. Font weight, again, is going to be set to 700. And then we can also set the color, and we'll use our variable of dash dash main dash black. Last, we need the P's and the list items. So I'll do P, comma, LI. And these are going to be set to 16 pixels. Font weight is going to be 400. And then I'll just copy the color instead of typing it again and paste it in. So I'm going to split my screen in half. And now we're going to style the buttons. So the first one is .btn white. And that is right here, try it free. So first thing I'm going to do is set the display to inline block. Next, we can do a text decoration and set that to none to remove the underline. I'm going to set a width of 200 pixels and a height of 60 pixels. I'm going to set the font size to 20 pixels. Font weight, it's going to be 700. I'm going to text align to the center. And then to match our height here, so I'll just put it below, I'll set the line height to 60 pixels. That way it's centered up in our button. And then on the margin, bottom, I'm going to set that to 135 pixels. And that's just going to space out this and these P tags later on. So now what we need to do is make this text colored. And we use a gradient here. So I'm just going to open up Safari. And I'm going to do CSS gradient generator. And just Google that. And css-gradient.com. So we want a linear gradient. We can do this to the right. And then our colors. All right, so now that we have that, we can just copy all of that. So that's going to generate everything for us. And then we'll just paste that in. So we have the old browser background, and then we have support for all of our other browsers here. And you'll notice we have that background as a gradient. So we want that to be on the text. So what I'm going to do is below this, I'm going to say dash WebKit dash background dash clip, and I'm going to put that to text. Then we also need to say WebKit dash text dash fill dash color to transparent. And with that, you'll see our text now has that gradient applied to it, which is exactly what we want. We have this button in a group, so I'm going to target that now. So dot button group. And we'll position this relative and set the Z index to 1. And then we can target the dot white BG, which is also in that group. And that's going to be the background for this button. So we'll say background dash color, white, display of block. And then I will set the height to 60 pixels and the width to 200 pixels. Then we're going to position this absolute. And since we positioned this relative, it's going to take a look at that. I'm going to set the Z index to -1, which is going to put it behind our text instead of in front of it. The top is going to be set to 0 so that it matches the background that we specified with the text. And the border radius, we're going to set that to 3 pixels. So when we apply our image to the background of the section, you'll be able to see, but our button is now completed. The next button we have is the button color, and that is down at the very bottom of our page down here. Get started. And that one was called button color. A lot of this is going to be the same, but I'm just going to rewrite it. So display is going to be inline block. Text decoration to none. Width of 200 pixels. Height of 60 pixels. Then we'll line height that to 60 pixels as well. Text alignment needs to be center. Background image is going to be set to var. And we're going to use our linear gradient. So dash dash main dash gradient. And you'll see we have that. I'm going to set the text to white. So color white. The font size is going to be 20 pixels. Font weight, 700. And then we'll border radius to 3 pixels. So that is our 2 main buttons done. We also have a button, or what I called a button, right here, which is the View More. That one is named button green. So I'll first set the color to our variable for green, so var. And then we'll say dash dash main dash green. Text decoration, none. Font size, we'll set that to 20 pixels. Font weight is 700. And then we're going to adjust the letter spacing on this to 1 pixel. That'll space that out a little bit. The last thing we need in the global styling is the span tag. We use the span tag on the 599 down here. We just need to set the color of that. So we can say span and color. And we'll set that to our variable green. So dash dash main dash green. And so I'm going to go up to the top and grab this comment. Command C. Command V. And then we'll call this one header/nav, and that's what we're going to style next. Out of all of our sections, I think this one's going to require the most CSS. So let's go ahead and get started with the nav itself. And I'm going to display this to inline block. And then we're going to set the width to 100%. Just scroll up here. Next thing we're going to target is the nav A. And this is going to be a color of white with a text decoration of none. And then the line height needs to be set to 100 pixels. Then we can style the logo, so dot logo for that class. Font weight is going to be set to 500. The font size, I'm going to make that 25 pixels. And then let's adjust the letter spacing on this to match our design. So we'll go with about 2 pixels. So now we need to work on the navigation. And we can't really see it at this moment. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the header and just apply that background image. So we'll go background, image, URL, and this is going to be images, and we're looking for the Deadpool header image. And then we'll background, repeat, no repeat. Background position is going to be set to center. And then we need to set the size, so background size is going to be cover. Also in here, we're going to set the height to 100 VH, which is the viewport height. Then I'm going to set a min height of 900 pixels. And then we need some spacing on the left and the right for some margins. So I'll do this with width. We'll set that to 90%. And then padding of 0 on the top and bottom, and then 5% on the left and the right. Okay, now we can go back to styling our navigation. So we'll do nav UL. And we're going to float this to the right. And then I'm going to remove the list style by setting it to none. Next up, we have the nav ULLI, which is the list items. We're going to display those as inline block. And then I want the margin on the left to be 50 pixels, so there's spacing in between them. And we should have this. Now you'll see we have double navigation because we have a desktop and we have a mobile. That's okay for now. Moving on, we'll target the header H1, and I'm going to set the color to white. The width on this is going to be 55%. And then for the margin, we're going to set 90 pixels on the top, 0 on the right, 40 pixels on the bottom, and 0 pixels on the left. Then we can go to the header P, and we'll color this to white as well. I'm going to add some margin to the bottom, and we'll set that to 40 pixels. And then I want to lower the opacity on these so they don't stand out so much. So we'll go with something like 0.9. So now let's work on our iPad and iPhone images. So first we'll do the iPad, so .iPad. And I'm going to set the width on this to 60% of the browser. And then position this absolute. And here in the header, I'm going to add a position of relative for that. Back in the iPad, we're going to adjust this to the right. So we'll say right 0. And then from the bottom, I want to go up 60 pixels. So that looks pretty good. Next for the iPhone, say .iPhone. And we'll set the width on this to 40%. Position it absolute as well. On the right, we're going to set that value to 4%. And on the top, we're going to set that to 150 pixels. And then you can see where the position is of that. And we need to hide it for now. So we'll do display of none. So now let's handle our double navigation we have up here. So the first thing I want to do is target the mobile. And since we're on the desktop version right now, we want to set that to a display of none, which is going to remove that. And that will fix all of our spacing over here now. So we can take a look, and we have the desktop header section done. I'm going to apply the code for that mobile navigation now. Even though we won't be able to see it right now, we're just going to go ahead and add it. So we need to target that label and set the margin of 0, 40 pixels, 0 and 0. I'm actually going to remove this mobile display of none for now so we can see what we're doing. And we can target that ID we gave it of toggle. And then we're going to display that of none so we can hide that checkbox. and that's going to be permanent. So dot mobile UL, so that unordered list, we want to text align them to the center. I want the width to be 100%. And I want display of none by default. So unless we have this checked, we don't want to show it. And the margin needs to be set to 0. And then the background color, I'm going to give it a RGBA value. And we'll set that to 255, 255, 255, which is going to make it all white. And then on the opacity, we'll set that to 0.1 or the alpha. Next, we can target the list items, so dot mobile ULLI. I'm going to set the margin to 0, the width to 100%. And then I want a border on the bottom, so I'm going to say border dash bottom. And this is going to be 1 pixel. It's going to be solid. And we'll do an RGBA value like we did above. And it'll be 255 by 255, 255, and then 0.2 on the alpha. Last thing we need to do is when we actually click this, we want the magic to happen and we want to see our navigation. So we'll say toggle and then add checked. And then I'm going to do a tilde key and UL. So that's going to target the UL right after that. And we'll just say display of block, which will reverse the display of none right here on the unordered list. So when we select this, you'll see that we have this drop down. So now we need to position the label itself. So I'll go back up here to label. And let's set the font size to 25 pixels. The color to white. When we hover over it, we want the pointer to show up. So cursor, pointer. So now when we hover over it, it acts like a link. I want to position this absolute. And from the top, I'm going to set that to 32 pixels. And on the right, we'll set that to 0. So now it is over here, and we can officially hide our mobile navigation until we are on a tablet or a phone. So here in mobile, we'll just say display of none. So that is the landing section done with the mobile and desktop version of the navigation. So next we can go on to the new 4K movie section. We just copy this comment, go all the way down and paste in. And then we'll just call this new 4K movies. First we need to target the dot new 4K movie section. So dot new 4K movies. And I want the width to be 90%. And then padding 0 on the top and bottom and 5% on each of the sides. And then a margin on the bottom of 160 pixels. Now I'm going to grab the section title H2 and the dot section title A. And we'll display of inline block and vertically align them to the middle. So that's going to align those two together. Next, if we target the section title A by itself and add a margin on the left of 20 pixels, it'll push that away from that. And then dot section title itself, we'll give that a margin of 50 pixels on the top, 0 on the right, and 20 pixels on the bottom, and 0 on the left. After that, we need to target the UL, which is housing 4 of our movie posters, and then another 4 below that. So we'll go dot new 4K movies, and then we'll say the UL in that section. And we'll do a width of 100%. We're going to display that as flex. And then a list style of none to remove those little bullet points. Now that we have that, we need to position these correctly and in the right size. So we'll do that with the new 4K movies section, then UL, LI, and then target the image. We'll set the width to 92% with a margin of 4% all around. And then we need to apply a drop shadow to this. So we can head over to our browser, and I'll just type in box shadow CSS, and I'll select the cssmatic.com. I'm going to set the horizontal length to 0 and the vertical length to 3. Blur at 5, and then we'll drop the opacity all the way down to 16. And then we can just grab all of this and copy it and paste in our box shadow. That's all we need for that section, so now we can move on to the call to action. So I'll grab my comment and go down below here. Call to action. All we need to do is two things for the section. So we'll say dot call to action, and we'll text align that to the center. And we need to set the width, which is going to be 60%. And then I'm going to set a margin of 0 and then auto, 200 pixels, and then auto. Last thing we need is the dot call to action H1, and let's apply a margin on the bottom of 40 pixels, and that's what we have. So let's copy this and paste it down here, and then we can do the footer. First thing for the footer, I'll do the footer A, and we'll remove the text decorations on those and set them to none. And then on the color, we'll do our variable, and this will be main black. Below that, I can go footer UL, target that unordered list, which is these 4 links. Set the list style to none, and then float them to the right. Next, let's target the footer unordered list items, and we'll display those as an inline block, which will line those all up nicely. And then we can add some margin on the left of 50 pixels, and that'll separate all of those like that. Now I'm going to grab my .copy class, which is housing our logo and our copyright, and we'll say .copy A, and then we'll grab the .copy P. It's going to grab both of those elements, and we can display those as inline block, and then vertically align them to the middle. We're going to need some spacing here, so we'll target the .copy P and add a margin on the left of 20 pixels. Lastly, we can just target the footer itself, and on the width, we need that to 90%, which we've done throughout the design, and we'll do padding of 0 and then 5% on each side for all of our margin spacings. Last thing we need to do is say footer, grab the unordered list, and also grab .copy, and set the line height on all of that to 80 pixels, and display those as inline block. And that will make sure everything is nice and even, and that is it. So let's grab our footer tag, copy that, paste that in, and then we can name this responsive. So in the next video, which will be part 2.5, we will add all the responsive code to fix this website from breaking from desktop to tablet to phone. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That is how to code this streaming platform website. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more UI related content, and as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.